Hello, darling.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really well, and I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here too. It's like, it'll be almost maybe work to like stay on track because I just want to have girl talk. But yeah, I'm glad you're here. Glad we have a camera. Thankful for technology right now.
Absolutely. And I think we can ebb and flow.
I think
Can
we
be a
can ebb and
little
flow.
little worky, a little chatty.
I think so too. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna dive right into my one and only question, which is what are you currently reclaiming? I see your eyes getting big. Tell
Just a
us,
casual start to the catch up. So,
what's the deepest thing going on in your life? No, what are you currently reclaiming?
I mean, it's so clear to me that the answer is my voice. I
Ah,
just feel like even if I sit and think about it, or the first word that came to mind, it's my voice. Not that I was ever silenced or anything like that,
mm-hmm,
but I like self-silenced, I guess, and
hmm.
have been so quiet for so many years. And it's not in the like, oh, she's standing up now and like speaking her thing. It's just it's more quiet than that, but it's just
Hmm.
telling the people around me what's going on with me for the first time in my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yay. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Um, that's wow, yeah. I mean, that's a huge piece of my reclamation as well. So I really get that. And I think probably for a lot, if not maybe even most women, that's really relatable. And were we, told that we were being silenced? No, but I think through just cultural norms and just the way things have been for the last like multiple hundreds of years, it doesn't have to be said. And actually, it has been said for many. And so, yeah, there's a big wound there for us to unpack. And so I honor that work you're in. I know it's uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, for me, it's the most uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I mean, I think people that know me now and know that like been through a massive health crisis and struggle, the most obvious answer would be like, oh, reclaiming my health. But
Hmm.
deeper than that is speaking and
Yeah.
sharing. And that
Yeah.
is like that's deeper than my health. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's the most uncomfortable thing for me in the world is to speak, you know, the nitty gritty about what's
Hmm.
going on with me. But I've been practicing a lot for now. It's been about 3 years. I think I met you about 3 years ago. So I've been making a lot of progress over the last few years. But before that, I was a very, very closed little book.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
We'll get into a little bit. You mentioned already that there was a health crisis, and there's a part of me, the part of me that's always like, oh, everything's perfectly placed for a reason. There's a part of me that's like, I wonder if this health crisis was placed here for you to find the power in your voice because you're speaking up a lot about this now.
Yes, it's been
Yeah.
the biggest gift of my entire life and the most important thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And the loudest message, because there were messages before, I just wasn't I was choosing to ignore them. So the to get through to me, to get through all that
Hmm.
conditioning and those learned behaviors and learned way of feeling and thinking, it had to be loud and it had to be as loud as it was. And I
Hmm.
definitely got the message through life, kind of life altering illness.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, it's
Hmm.
it's
Universe
been
is a funny, tricky little thing.
yeah, I like remember like years ago so kind of cheese, but like Oprah was like, the message will just come as a whisper and then a bit
Hmm.
louder and then a bit louder.
Hmm.
And then with illness, they say a lot of times the quote is, if you don't make time for your health, you'll be forced to make time for your illness, or those
Yeah.
kind of quotes. Like, listen to the whispers before they become screams.
Hmm.
I'm all of those. They had to be
Hmm.
deafening screams. And then I
Yeah.
started to listen.
Yeah. Do you want to, just for those who don't have the privilege of knowing you, do you want to talk a little bit about what you have been working with in your health in the last few years? What came up for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really outdoorsy, been horseback riding my whole life and very outdoorsy, nature-oriented person. And I was bitten by a tick riding my horse in 2017. And then obviously it was a Lyme infected tick. Which I didn't know, but I spent from 2017 to 2020, I just started developing very strange symptoms that I ignored. I was just a bit too busy to have time for anything like that. So I just ignored them. And then in 2020, I finally became so ill that my life just kind of fell apart and um, ended up testing positive for Lyme disease. And so spent a good year on the couch and in bed. And then, yeah, probably 2 years of consistent pain, 1 year of pretty agonizing pain. And so that was 3.5 years ago now. So I've been healing nonstop physically and emotionally for 3.5 years.
Mhm.
When you get a diagnosis like Lyme, and I'm a scientist, so I was like, okay, this is a bacteria. This is very straightforward. We're going to treat it
Mhm.
clinically. And then it was so fast. Within like 2 months, I realized if I was going to regain my health, I I had no choice but to do the emotional and the inner work that I'd been avoiding for so long because I
Yeah.
was excelling on the outside or like the other stuff. I was just a great little doer and achiever. But I really didn't know to do the inner work. And so
Hmm.
Lyme came along and there was no healing without doing that. So yeah, it's been 3.5 years. It's profoundly changed my life, like in
Yeah.
every way. Um, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah.
Who or what or how did you get turned on to the fact that I need to do some inner work? Was that just an intuitive knowing? Did someone suggest it? How did that come to you?
Um, I would say there was an intuitive knowing, which I think we all have, and whether or not we tune into it or want to acknowledge it, I was very much like a turn away from that kind of voice person
Hmm.
because I always like favored logic and reason in my mind. So that, yes, that was there, but I was very good at being like, not doing that. And then I was out of sheer panic and desperation and fear when I was so sick and so terrified of the diagnosis I'd been given. I called a psychic, which I'd never done in my life. And I just like went on to Google and it was like San Diego psychic. And like, what do you, I mean, like, I was so terrified and just had a call with a psychic. I hid in my bedroom away from like my husband because I was like, this is so shameful.
Oh.
Um, and like hid in the corner and like whispered on the phone with her and kept it like as clinical and sciencey as possible. And she was the one who was like, you will get better, but if you want to do that, you have to like look into you have to look inward. You probably want to like address some of the things that are like inside and like maybe look at, stuff from your past. And I was like, how dare she say such things?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so but I wrote the notes down and I took all the notes and I was like, because I'm super like studious. So as soon
Hmm.
as she said that, I was like, yes, okay, I will do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I will do that next Thursday. Like.
Right. I'll start that soon.
Yeah. So it was
Oh my
both, but
gosh.
she was a turning point for me. Yeah.
Hmm. So I know you, so I know some things about you, but you're not afraid. Okay, so I know that you're not afraid of ticks. And I know that I shouldn't say I know. I assume, I believe, I trust that anyone who has been bitten by a Lyme infested tick would probably be afraid of ticks. So, how and why are you not afraid of them?
Yeah, and when I speak about this especially to people that are suffering from Lyme, because I have suffered so deeply from Lyme, I understand that when I speak about not being fearful of ticks, I'm not dismissing the extraordinary pain that ticks can bring to people.
Yeah.
I've lived it myself. My job went away. I haven't ridden a horse 3 years. I used to spend
Mm.
more time on a horse than I did like doing anything aside from work. So I understand that firsthand. And I think that I can hold both those things. I can know how brutal it is.
Hmm.
And I think that when I started doing all this research about Lyme, and there's just like a really strong hatred towards ticks,
Hmm.
vilification of them. They're the devil. We should start spraying for them. And like that just to me has never resonated, because Lyme was already such a tumultuous, horrible time. I just felt like that kind of stuff adds more negativity or whatever. Like that,
Yeah.
like the F cancer, there's like t-shirts like F ticks, like the full word. And like, and I'm like, that doesn't feel good to me. So
Hmm.
I, from, I'm not fearful, because I have spent a long time understanding that I don't actually blame that tick for why I became so ill. Lyme is endemic to everywhere. It is everywhere. It's a bacteria just like any others. I mean, it's a very sophisticated, incredible bacteria, very smart, very
Hmm.
sophisticated. Um, but it exists. I don't believe nature makes any mistakes. Ticks are
Hmm.
there for a reason. There are many reasons why ticks are important to healthy ecosystems and functioning ecosystems. So I understand that with like a biology background, but I just have chosen to not outsource my power to the ticks, because when you
Hmm.
hate all of the ticks,
Hmm.
it extends to nature and extends to
Yeah.
time outside. And then you're like, there are unfortunately and tragically like people with Lyme that won't leave the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And so I, through so much work, have learned that I don't believe I got sick because I got bit by a tick. My husband
Hmm.
has been bit many times.
Hmm.
Many people are bitten many times and are fine.
Hmm.
You can have Borrelia as the name of the bacteria. It can be transmitted to you from through the tick, and people are fine. I just
Yeah.
think I wasn't fine because I was in a really frantic state. And so like I am, and I say this all the time, and I think I won't ever stop saying this, like I am genuinely more fearful of the way I was living my life when I was bitten than I am of ticks. I feel
Mm.
so much stronger now and so much more resilient and capable. Should I come into contact with a Lyme infected tick again, I have so much more faith in my body functioning the way it was intended to, versus when I
Hmm.
was bitten, which I was very stressed out.
Yeah.
So, I'm still nervous around them. There are a lot
Hmm.
of them here. Like when you go hiking in the sage scrub in Southern California, there's a lot of ticks. I've seen
Hmm.
ticks, and I still kind of go like, oh my God. Like I'm not like rolling around in the sage scrub, but they don't stop me from going. Like I lay on the rocks barefoot. I lay on the earth. They
Hmm.
don't stop me. I'm still aware. And I'm still a little
Hmm.
like, oof. If I did get bitten again, I don't know. I actually don't know how I would react.
Yeah.
But I'm not like fear forward with ticks,
Yeah.
you know.
That's really, yeah, that's really cool to hear. And you're doing so much speaking for someone who doesn't like to talk. You're doing so much speaking about it. And I have not been bitten by a tick yet in my life, hopefully not to be. So I don't have much that I can say to this, but I imagine that it's both um like maybe even intimidating, but also very empowering to see like an educated confident woman speaking about this and speaking about how like you aren't victim to the tick. You aren't outsourcing your power. I'm really glad you said that. Outsourcing your power. It's like when we blame something, that's what we're doing. Whatever the situation, blame someone for being late, blame a tick for giving you Lyme. Like that's a really yeah, it's a really cool point to bring forward. Can you talk a little bit about what you did and are still doing to support yourself that isn't traditional, maybe?
In my healing from Lyme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was like type A. My doctors are like, you are such an overachieving little patient. Like just so what they, I sort of like what they said I did, and I did it
Hmm.
every day. So consistency is key with recovering from Lyme.
Okay.
Um, in terms of like outside the box things, I do think that the people who are most successful in recovering from, especially like late stage, I really resist using the word chronic,
Mm-hmm.
but like a later stage infection, I had been bitten and the Lyme was, spreading for 3 years. So yes, technically I had late stage, and I
Mm-hmm.
had the symptoms that like the neurological symptoms that demonstrated it had like moved into my brain and all these
Oh,
things, right? So what I do is, well, yeah, I guess my my belief systems around the illness and the disease are really different than what I tend to see online. So I think that like
mm.
I not hating ticks, not blaming nature, not focusing on like this like some towns on the East Coast are like proposing like spraying like pesticides and things like that. I'm like, if y'all read Silent Spring, like we might want
Yeah.
to like pump the brakes on these things.
Yeah.
So I'm not like cuddling up with them, but I fully recognize their place in the ecosystems
Mm-hmm.
in ecosystems, and I have no hatred towards them. And that has sort of just like brought such a sense of peace when your
Mm-hmm.
body is in such a like state, not a fight. I don't like the word fight, but like in a period of growth or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. When
Yeah.
like shit's hitting the fan with your
Yeah.
body, any way you can find peace with the things around you, I feel like that promotes healing. And I have
Yeah.
found so much healing in nature. And I
Mm-hmm.
totally think it's cool now that like I'm a nature person, I'm a biologist, and like the thing that took me down, I got in
Mm.
nature.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of badass and
Yeah. It's
like
super
perfect for
badass.
me. And it's
Yeah.
like perfect for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, and for me, like the healing, there was no healing without immersing myself in nature even more than I already was.
Mm-hmm.
So um there was, yeah, like there was no healing without nature. And yes, ticks
Mm-hmm.
exist in nature. So that's a little different than what's spoken about on um,
Mm-hmm.
the Lyme world. And then, like in terms of like specifics, because Lyme people tend to love the specifics. Like it's the breath work, obviously. That's why you're in my
Obviously.
life. Obviously, the breath work and
Duh.
Chinese medicine,
Mm-hmm.
anything to sort of increase my baseline health. I didn't really like, now I don't focus so much on like killing the bacteria, like
Yeah.
specifically. I think about like just how to make my little body ecosystem the best and most
Mm-hmm.
resilient it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think about it a little bit with like rose-colored lenses now. And that
Mm-hmm.
didn't just happen overnight. That was seriously intentional work to change my
Yeah.
beliefs about Lyme. Like change your beliefs about Lyme, and then all your actions and thoughts and feelings about Lyme will change. But that
Yeah.
takes a ton of work. Yeah, takes a
Yeah.
ton of work.
No kidding. And that's we're not going to go into this. We don't have to, but in
Yeah.
the world of like manifestation or in the world of just like energetics and the universal laws, like that is it. Like it's energy. It's mindset and energy and yeah, if you think that everything outside of your door is going to harm you, then something's probably going to harm you when you walk outside of your door. But if you believe differently, your reality will be different. I know you don't like to use the word remission. Tell me a little bit. I know nothing about Lyme. I'm learning in this moment. Like, so does
Yeah.
Lyme technically like live in your body sort of the way, and this is triggering my brain because of the word remission, like cancer? Is it the same? Can you explain to me a little bit about what its journey is in the body, and does it ever go away?
Lyme is so shockingly misunderstood by the scientific community and the general public.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if anyone like listening to this is like really into this, the best documentary I've ever seen is the Quiet Epidemic, and it explains from and it's exhaustively researched, where the failures have been for the last, I think Lyme was discovered in about the 70s, so for the last
Okay.
50 years.
I want to say that was like
I
30
know
years
30
ago.
years ago.
70s, like, oh yeah, 30 years ago.
30 years
Which,
ago.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, carry
So
on.
it's widely misunderstood. There's a lot of misinformation floating around, and even the CDC has just recently updated some of their really like fundamentally incorrect assumptions about Lyme disease. So it's a bacteria, Borrelia burgdorferi, very, very, very smart, very, very sophisticated bacteria. I think it lives actually in rodents like birds and squirrels and things like that. The ticks just feed off of those rodents, and the ticks then transmit it to the next, host. So the
Yeah,
ticks aren't like the ones carrying it; they're just transferring it.
right. It's not even their
Um,
fault.
no, they're just eating. They're just eating.
It's just having some num-nums.
Snack. So yeah, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about like, do you need a rash? How long does the tick have to be attached? And when you do look online, when I was bitten, I looked online and I was totally misled by websites that look really legitimate. Like it has to be
Hmm.
attached for 18 hours. It has to be not this species. It's like, because there are like multiple species of ticks, and
Yeah.
you need to develop a bullseye rash. And these things are all not really accurate.
Hmm.
So it's changing, and like that's why I want to talk about these things too.
Hmm.
Um, it really depends. Like the general consensus is that you like, especially if you have chronic, so acute Lyme can be treated within a few weeks with a round of antibiotics. Once
Hmm.
it
Okay.
gets more late stage. I was on antibiotics for 1 full year, which is just so insane.
Wow.
And I still had, I mean, that maybe got me 60% better. I was on
Hmm.
7 to 8 antibiotics for 1 full year.
Oh my gosh,
And
your poor belly.
oh, she's hanging in there. And so yeah, like depends who you ask. And the
Hmm.
general consensus is that if you have late stage chronic Lyme, that your best case scenario is remission, that there will
Hmm.
always be like traces of the bacteria within you. And maybe like you have a catastrophic event in your life, your house burns down or something like that. It might like
Yeah.
rear its ugly head again. I have just made a very conscious decision to not
Hmm.
subscribe to that, because then it always feels like it's hanging in the rafters, waiting to
Hmm.
strike whenever
Hmm.
my next stressful event is.
Yeah.
So, again, because it's so misunderstood and there's so much misinformation, I was like, well, I'm just going to fill in the blanks myself then. I'm
Yeah.
going to write, I'm going to look to my greatest example and teacher, nature.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to fill in those blanks for myself. And it's worked out
Hmm.
brilliantly for me. And so if I can share
Hmm.
that with people, and it doesn't just apply to Lyme, right? Like you and I could be talking about anything. I think
Hmm.
that's why, like, this could be like insert anything and these
Yep.
principles apply.
Totally.
Yeah.
This is a little offshoot, but speaking of nature and like the power of it, and Cam and I were walking the dogs the other day through this really sweet. Okay, do you know where Rithets Bog is in Victoria? Did you ever?
Oh, I grew up in Royal Oak.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rithets
Yeah.
Bog is like a 5 minute walk from our place. And so we were walking through there, and there's this one really like knotty tree, like it's all knotted up, and it's in, a little section with other trees that are very straight and normal looking. And I said, I think it every time I'm in nature, but then I spoke it out loud to Cam. I'm like, nature, like of all the things it does everything. And it's such a reminder of the importance of being unique and standing out from the crowd. Like, can we walk through the forest? And sure, we'll say, wow, it's so pretty in here. But we're often not, you might, because you probably stop and hug every tree. But like, we're not looking at all of the trees that look the same and go, wow, look at that tree. We're looking at the one that looks different. We're looking at the one that's either massive or gnarly and curved and like, things coming out of it. It's the one that looks so different that we stop in awe and like it takes our breath away. And so in terms of us, humans, us, we're all so busy. That's a blanket statement. Maybe we aren't, but like we're all so busy trying to fit in and belong. And I mean, belonging is a foundational, survival need. I get that. But all trying to be like everyone else. And that's not memorable. That's not it. And so nature always reminds me of the importance of uniqueness. It also reminds me of like when you see if when you go into a forest after a windstorm and it's chaos in there. Yes, on one hand, that's like sad and, you know, sad. But on the other, you look around and it's like, wow, this is still so fucking beautiful. Like, look at that tree is down and now there's something growing out of it. And what it like it look at all the lines that nature's creating here and the different pockets where the sunlight can reach through because there's these two trees crossing. Like chaos is still so magical and beautiful, and there's so much to learn from it. So that I don't know if that's like a segue into how like what has nature taught you about healing? Because I know that it has been a big part of your healing.
Yeah, when you were saying the windstorm or whatever, I just love I think I don't remember where I read it, but the quote, ruin is the road to transformation. And like
Mhm,
it's so true. And that's what
mhm,
Lyme has been for me. It's like I mean, I was just ravaged,
mhm,
ravaged. It's been like the biggest growth and rebirth and
mhm.
all the things out of it. So um you just asked me a question I forgot. What has nature taught me
Oh,
about? Yeah.
essentially, yeah, yeah. What has
Yeah.
nature taught you or reminded you about your anything, but during this healing time?
Oh yeah, like I used it in a couple like when I guess I use it literally in terms of immersing myself in nature because,
Mhm,
and this is like, I mean, so many of the benefits in nature are parallel to your work with breath work, like the
mhm,
nervous system calming, lowering stress hormones. You
mhm,
start breathing deeper, like
mhm.
all of the measurable, quantifiable benefits of being in nature. That's why
Mhm.
like forest bathing is like
Yeah.
a thing now, right? Like it's like just walking in the woods. But now
Japanese doctors prescribe it. Like they
yeah,
prescribe it. North
yes,
America, what is happening?
yeah. And we have so, especially in Canada, especially when
Mhm,
you live in a less populated place. Um,
mhm.
I think so. Yeah, I would earth every day. I would ground every day, bare feet. And I'm talking like Southern California concrete jungle. You can find a little patch of
Mhm.
dirt, earthing every day, sun on your skin every day,
Yeah.
sun in your eyes every day. Um, the my favorite book title, oh shoot, The Comfort of Crows. There
Mm.
is nature everywhere for you to observe. If you live in the middle of Manhattan, just observe the pigeons. They're
Yeah.
incredible animals.
Yeah.
Like falling in love with nature in a way that was more than my biology training had me. The way
Mhm,
I was, like I was kind of clinical about it. I like
mhm.
knew how to protect it and like would help make laws to protect it. But I've
Yeah.
just sort of fallen back in love with it the way I was more as a kid, like running around in Vancouver Island.
Mhm.
Um, and so those are more measurable, quantifiable, I guess, like backed by science or whatever, those kind of things
Mhm.
I did. Um, Swimming in an ocean, any body of water, like good
Mhm.
luck holding me back. I
Yeah.
am a water sign through and through. I mean, I am as much of the water as possible.
Mhm.
For anyone suffering with chronic pain, inflammation, emotional distress, get
Mhm.
in cold water if you can, and like lakes and streams and rivers. No,
Yeah.
natural bodies of water are so remarkably calming and healing, and a calm
Mhm.
nervous system lends itself to a healthier immune system and healing. So, and then I guess I leaned a little bit more on my scientific training when I looked at nature, kind of more metaphorically or as an example of healing.
Mhm.
And that was where the language online about Lyme, which is like this is for life, you're hosed. I just like you walking through the woods would look at examples of extreme rebuilding, extreme healing. And I was like, well, there's no distinction between me and nature. Like I am it, it is me.
Mhm.
And it can climb its way back from like pretty utter devastation. I've seen that
Yeah.
firsthand in my career a lot. And
Yeah.
so I just applied that principle to myself. And
Mhm.
I just knew that that resilience applied to me too. And that ability to rebuild. But the asterisk is that given the right situation and time and
Mhm.
conditions and care, like if I was living today the way I was when I was bitten, I don't think I wouldn't have healed the way I
Yeah.
have. So you have to, the conditions need to be there to
Hmm.
promote that regeneration and that recovery, which I knew as a biologist and I knew as working in marine science, like, okay, if we want to make sure this like white shark population rebounds, we got to work on the ecosystem that it exists within,
Yeah.
protect the sea lions, its main food source, and like the white shark population has bumped up, which is wonderful. So I just did that. I just applied that to myself, and I didn't really think anything of it because that's how I have viewed the world. And then
Hmm.
when I got sick, I realized like that isn't also like a super common thing that you're like hearing Lyme people talk about. I'm like, you know, go out in nature and observe like any little patch of land that they're restoring or a wetland restoration or anything
Hmm.
and draw from that, draw your courage from that, like borrow your courage from like nature and be like, she
Hmm.
can do it, I can do it. That's what
Yeah.
I did, and it worked.
It feels like it feels both ancient the way you're approaching it, like I don't even know if there's a word for what I'm thinking, but like traditional, ancient, intuitive. It's a very intuitive approach to your healing, and that feels really powerful. And there was something else in there for me. What was I going to say? Oh, and like simplified. You're like
Yes,
keeping
totally.
it simple. Like, let's go back to nature. Let's go back to the basics. Like, this world is so full of so much information, and who knows what we can even believe anyway. And like the simplification of it is, I think, so important. With everything, like with everything.
I agree. I am yearning for a simpler and simpler existence.
Yeah.
And that isn't what society demonstrated to me was the end goal and didn't reward me for wanting that.
Hmm.
Society rewarded me for like the frenzied life I was living.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm like, how many decisions away from like living with my goats in a yurt am I? Like, not
You're very
many.
close. No, you're very close. You're very close. I don't, yeah, it'll happen.
I mean, I think so many of our problems would just melt away without being solved. They would just
Yeah.
dissolve on their own by, I mean, I know AI and all that stuff really scares me and I
Hmm.
don't understand it. And so maybe I
Hmm.
need to face my fears and look at it head on. Social media, like I resisted. And now I have met people that have fundamentally changed my life through social media.
Yeah.
No, full stop.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I do much, I subscribe to a much slower existence. Like um, I really take the time to observe crows. I kid you not. And that has
Hmm.
changed my life. Like, try it. It's amazing. I
Okay.
am determined to make, you can like make crow friends and they'll like guard you and they'll, if you get into the world, it's such a tangent. Like the TED talk on like crow intelligence is so interesting. They are
Okay.
so intelligent. Their social structures, um, and like they're right there for you to observe. And
Yeah.
yeah, this is a tangent, but
No, it's a good tangent. Two things. First thing I saw this morning when I went out on my deck was a crow. And I actually don't often see crows in my backyard, but there's a big crow. And then my girlfriend Carrie sent me a text or an Instagram. She messaged me like a week ago and was like, I just wanted to celebrate with you that I made friends with a crow. And like she's been trying for a while.
oh, it's so hard.
So she's
But
she's
I
also like very witchy and like spiritually connected and very open. And so I'm sure she just had some conversations and the crow finally was like, okay, I trust you.
please congratulate her from me. That is
I will.
incredible.
I will. I will. Can't they like they recognize faces, yeah? And if you harm one or if you piss them off, they tell all of their crow friends.
Oh yeah, and they will bring you little trinkets, like you leave out food for them. They will
Oh,
return with little like pennies that they find and little shiny nuts and bolts. And it's just so, and they use tools like that's documented. Like they'll pick up sticks to like put in jars to get like ants at the bottom of a jar. So they have demonstrated use of tools.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like it's so interesting. And it really brings you into the present. Like when you take the time to observe an animal,
Hmm.
it locks you into the present because animals only live in the moment. Like
Yes.
I'm convinced. I mean, I observe my cats like I'm a wildlife biologist all the time. And I'm like, they are not thinking about yesterday and they are not thinking about tomorrow.
No.
Maybe dinner. Maybe they're thinking about
Yeah.
dinner.
Yeah.
But like it's so anchored in the now. I think
Yeah.
you know this stuff through and through. What I think what comes with our extreme ability to be like human and these huge
Hmm.
brains that are capable of so much,
Hmm.
the risk, not the risk, but like we're also capable of like being really anxious and depressed and
Hmm.
like with the extreme magic we're capable of comes like that. I don't know what that word is, but the other side
Uh,
that can
yeah. The just the flip side.
the flip side, the flip
Yeah.
side, the flip side. And I see when I've been around animals my whole life, it's such a pure, beautiful present
Hmm.
acceptance.
Hmm.
You don't see internal fighting. Like they're in
Yeah.
pain, they're in pain.
Yeah.
They're not like battling what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, I did that for like a year. Like, oh, this is mean. I'm in so much
Yeah.
pain. It's like you're just in pain. You
Yeah.
have Lyme. This hurts,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. I was in a training with this really wonderful woman, and she was speaking about essentially feelings, essentially like it was specifically to women, but I mean this is for humans in general, but we were talking about the divine feminine and if we were to just feel a feeling rather than attach a story to the feeling and loop in the stories of the feeling, and then we're probably not even actually feeling, we're just in storytelling mode. If we were to actually just be in the feeling, and let's say it's a sad feeling, so let's say there's crying, if you could, and now this is the first challenge, is like how many humans could actually just allow themselves to be in the feeling and not go into story. But let's say you're crying. If you could just allow yourself to cry and just
Mhm.
like feel sad, I feel sad, I feel sad, or whatever that feeling is, we would max out at around 7 minutes and that feeling would fully process through. And so any feeling that is lasting more than 7 minutes is quite likely a thinking about the feeling and actually not the feeling. And so, yeah, with the wisdom of the animals of like not making the stories about it and just being in it. Yeah, they're such great teachers.
Well, nature is always flowing and moving and
Hmm.
like a healthy river is one that is flowing.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
movement, right? Like the
Yeah.
Chinese medicine is based in that.
Yeah.
I think qi is the
Yeah.
flowing energy, right? And I
Yeah.
really applied that to my healing. Like I was just trying to move
Hmm.
stagnant stuff emotionally and
Hmm.
physically. And that not like with emotions, not really I had to learn that you taught me this, that I'm capable of holding all emotions. I remember in
Hmm.
breathwork once you said, your body isn't going to give you anything it can't handle.
Hmm.
And so while anxiety for me has felt extremely uncomfortable,
Hmm.
I'm like, that's okay. I'm designed to
Hmm.
feel that.
Yeah.
And the movement of it is what allows
Hmm.
it to dissipate into flow, just like any healthy ecosystem where you have movement and
Right.
flow and
Yeah.
flushing. Like tidal flushing is really important and things like that, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's like we have been so conditioned to think that certain feelings are bad, and then we
Hmm.
attach that anxiety is bad, sadness is bad, fear is
Hmm.
bad. And then it's
Hmm.
like you're double beating yourself up rather than
Yeah.
not being like, well, the anxiety is a part of life
Yeah.
and uh yeah, but these are lessons that like I was like just like mainstream society isn't really talking about. I feel like I talk about this stuff now because I hang out with people like you, but
Yeah.
when you kind of like peek outside, you're like, oh, we're still not
Yeah.
really talking about this right here.
Yeah.
But
And it's funny because like it is a big part of my circle, right? Accounts I follow, people I spend my time with. And it's
totally.
really easy to forget that other people don't know what you're talking about.
Do you
Oh,
remember when we first met at Willow's? And
Okay, this is what I was going to ask you is
yeah,
how did we first connect? At
so
Willows?
you posted on I think it was like the cold swimming group in Victoria looking for a cold swimming
Oh,
buddy. And I was
yeah.
like full steam ahead already in freezing cold. And it was like January. And I'm like,
Yeah.
old girl, like what great, what a time to dive in. And so I messaged you,
Yeah.
and it's like 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
we met at Willows, and it was like uh legitimately freezing. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're doing it. Water's like 46 degrees. And
Yeah.
I remember I was so sick at the time. My life had been just like upended. I was super sick. I didn't know what was going on.
Hmm.
And you and I just met, and you were like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I'm a biologist, but I wasn't working because I was so sick. And I felt like an alien in plain sight. Like I had this like
Mm.
crazy secret. Like I had been in bed for a year. So this wasn't three and a
Hmm.
half years ago. It was like 2.5 years ago, three. And I was like, oh my God, like, how do I tell this girl that I just was in bed for a year? My life has just
Hmm.
been turned upside down. I am so sick. I think I'm never going to get well.
Yeah.
And was doing a bit of breath work, and I was like, I had my, like you said, I had my little breath work circle that we were super safe in. But like when you
Yeah.
leave that, how do you go to like outside that and talk about like taking deep breaths to heal anything? And so
Yeah.
I think I squeaked it out to you. I must have felt really safe. And I was like, well, I do Wim Hof. And I remember the moment you were like, really? And like I think my perception was like I kind of threw you. You seemed a little bit like, oh, like I remember you kind of like taking a step back, and you were like, well, that's great. And I was like, oh, she kind of gets that. And then like we like went swimming, and I like didn't know what to
Hmm.
say. And then I
Yeah.
don't, and then you know, I
That's
don't
so
know how
funny.
deep in it were you then.
I, oh gosh, I did my training in 2019 and and 2019, 2020. Yeah, 2019 and 2020. And then just I like continued to train. That would have been, was that 2020?
20, 2021,
So I would have been
2021.
so many numbers. I would have
COVID, deep
been
COVID.
deep COVID.
Yeah.
Well, because it was deep COVID, I guess I wasn't actually working with a lot of people. Wow, feels like
Taking
a
deep breaths
life.
all over each other.
Yeah.
Like,
I I mean, I was very obsessed with breath work because it had like changed my life and
yeah.
well, it just from the first experience onward. So I think I was really excited to learn that other people knew about it because I didn't know what it was like 2 years prior to that. So I think I was just really, yeah, in that like, oh, you're maybe kind of like me. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Like quite
And
excited.
like, but what am I? That's where I was. I was like, who am
Yeah.
I? Who is this
Yeah.
new version that I'm trying to carve out right now? I read the Wim Hof book, and that
Yeah.
was nice and like kind of technically. So I was like, that's why I latched onto cold swimming. And
Yeah.
then breath work and mindset are the three pillars, I guess. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I should start doing breath work because he says if I'm going to heal Lyme, I got to do all of them. Um,
Right.
Cold swimming is a lot more a nice, like it's an easier in because it's like clinical.
Yeah.
Taking a bunch of deep breaths is a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I didn't really know who I was at the time. I was so new to spirituality and alternative healing. I was
Yeah.
so new, so green, so confused, so judgy. I was
Well,
so
you're a
judgy.
scientist. Of course you're judgy about it. It's weird.
Yeah,
It's different. It's like it's the flip side.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I also went swimming with your mom one day.
Yes, you did. Yeah, yeah. So it's fate, girl.
So good. Okay, I'm so glad you reminded me because just today I'm like, how in the heck do I even know her? How are we friends? Where did it start?
Facebook.
Yeah,
Like it was like the oddballs or whatever. You were just
it
so
was the
cute. You just
oddballs.
posted like, I need to go swimming. I was like, good.
Well, because I had been, when the pandemic hit, I was still teaching fitness and I had this crew of boot campers. And when we couldn't do boot camp, side note, Tucker is so cute right now, curled up at my foot, being just a little lovey guy. Okay, so we couldn't do boot camp. So we were meeting at Maybe we weren't allowed, but we were doing it anyway. We were meeting at like 4 in the morning at the base of Mount Doug and hiking Mount Doug, watching sunrise at the top, and then going for a dip like multiple times a week. And we would just go to the beach. I don't even know what it's called, but basically the beach kind of right by Mount Doug. And we would sit in the water for like 15, longer than we needed to, like 15 minutes and just like chatting and
Wow.
watching the sunrise. And we started in March, April. We started in April. So it was still pretty cold. And then I dipped for a very long time. Our crew kind of dissipated. I went solo for a while and then I was on a hiatus, which is when I then reached out. So
Yeah.
it had been a big part of my life and then just wasn't.
Yeah,
And
you were
now it's
very
like,
quiet about that. I did
yeah,
not know that. Yeah,
mm,
that's really cool.
yeah. And now it's like it's not as often as I would like it to be, but it's still present. It's still present. I would say, mm, I can't even say. Let's call it 4 or 5 times a month, maybe.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah. But I'm ready when you come back. I'm ready. We'll go all the time.
Absolutely.
We'll get in that cold water, take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me a little bit and talk to the people about what you're doing, how like you're spreading big messages. What are we tell us how we can follow you in all of the ways. What's happening? So much to
Um,
catch up on.
well, yeah, so when I became super sick and I didn't tell my family for months and I didn't tell my friends for months after that. So
Mhm.
um and then I did come to the realization through some amazing coaching that I would have to start telling people about people that care about me, want to know what's going on in my
Mhm.
life, and facing that fear of just being so remarkably uncomfortable about talking
Mhm.
about myself.
Mhm.
And I decided to tell my family I was in bed. So that was number one.
Yeah.
And that was like that was so hard. It's so crazy because most people hopefully can't relate to why that is so hard. Just call
Right.
your mom and tell you you're sick.
Yeah.
So I did that. That was like the first major thing. Then telling some very select friends, and
Mhm.
then through my sister nudging me, saying, "Well, you haven't posted anything on social media. Like you might want to." Made a little reel, and I was like, "Surprise! I just got so sick, everybody, and this is what happened." And the response was like a little overwhelming, and the best way. Like people were
Mhm.
just shocked and super curious, like, oh my God, my
Mhm.
cousin has this, he's been sick for 17 years, like da da da
Yeah.
da. And then I decided to do more coaching, and the message was very back to your first question about like my voice. The message
Mhm.
has been super clear, and I'm still learning, obviously, but to to speak about things.
Mhm.
So I wrote a book. I wrote my book, and that was a nice, safe way for me to put everything on my computer that no one else could
Mhm.
see. So I've written my book, and we're just finishing up the last bit of editing right now, and that'll be published, I guess, next year.
Wow.
And um, and that was my dad has always been really amazing and telling me like you're a very strong writer. And
Mhm.
I lived in Mexico for half a year and wrote a really extensive blog while I was there. And then I realized like I can write creatively and I can write in a way that's really like engaging and
Mhm.
interesting. So my dad was the one who said, you're good, you're a strong writer, you should do this. So I was like, okay. So I just like opened up a Word document one day and just
Casual.
started writing, wrote a book. And then my editor, my beautiful, lovely editor said, well, even if you get the best publisher in the world, a lot of the marketing and getting the word out is really going to fall on your shoulders.
Mhm.
And so through some more gentle nudging, I think from my sister, I decided to like start an Instagram page of
Mhm.
like my Lyme healing.
Mhm.
Plus, I had so much to say because I have been voracious with my coaching and my breath work and my book reading. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, I do feel like I have like a graduate degree in this now, specific
Yeah.
to healing from Lyme or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that I there's a lot of people. It's the number one infectious, vector-borne infectious disease right now. It's 500,000 people in the States every year becoming ill with Lyme.
Wow.
So, you ask around and there's like my cousin's so-and-so, my brother-in-law is
Mm-hmm.
so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
Or people that just don't know what's wrong. They just like think they have fibromyalgia or they think they have like
Yeah.
MS or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's called the great imitator for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just started to share it on my cute little Instagram page. And I share on that a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I love doing podcasts. I love speaking to people. Like when I truly mean it when I say people I've met online have changed my life. And so
Yeah.
I really encourage people to reach out to me. And again, this stuff doesn't just apply to Lyme. Like I've done so much of emotional healing to heal
Mm-hmm.
my Lyme, but the emotional healing wasn't like necessarily tied to the Lyme,
Yeah.
just, unearthing things or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been amazing to do that. It's still super uncomfortable for me. I still feel like I'm being an oversharey.
Mm-hmm.
It still feels like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and logically I'm not, but like there's still subconscious programming that's like you're sharing
Mm-hmm.
an awful lot about yourself.
Right.
So, writing the book is like ripping the band-aid off to that.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
here's every last detail of this illness and
Yeah.
how I recovered from it. And that's going to be another level of healing. So I just want people to reach out because I really love connecting with people on the subject of
Mm-hmm.
nature and healing and all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know this more than I do in terms of connecting with people and people that and that's one of the gifts about social media is there are so many people I would not have
Mm-hmm.
connected with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been quite different if this had been like
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Right. Well,
So,
even like thinking to again, like the mirror of us and nature, and
mhm.
it's a mirror because we're literally the same thing, but everything in nature is connected. Like even you speaking about the tick has a purpose, like everything is interconnected. And if
Yeah.
we were to lift the top layer of ground up, we could see all of that interconnectedness. We aren't supposed to do any of this alone. Like connection is so key to everything. Connection is so key. And during, the last few years, that pandemic time, if we can remember back then, was so disconnecting. And so we've always needed it, but there's this extra layer of like really craving a connection. And so yeah, I'll urge everyone listening who is either affected by Lyme or curious or about nature or any of it to reach out. Yeah, look, and that'll just be you practicing. You're talking more, but you're like such a pro. It's so funny to me to know how uncomfortable you are with like speaking so much because you speak so beautifully and you seem
Well,
so
I was
calm.
told I have a Gemini moon, which I knew nothing about all that. And someone was like, well, duh, you have a Gemini moon. And I was in like Santa Monica at some event.
Of course
I
you
was
were.
like, what does that mean? And then I'm like, oh, it means I need to talk a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So
Perfect.
I know. I like it's fun. It's so fun. I'm like, oh, that
So
kind of makes
funny.
sense. But then like everyone's like, well, you're also a Scorpio. That's why you're secretive. So it's so funny. Like would have thought this stuff was absolutely ridiculous a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
And now my life is better for embracing it. My
Yeah.
life is like exponentially happier and better and more all the things because I now do the things I used to make fun of. Isn't
Right.
that like so crazy? It's
Yeah.
so much better. And then I have like real connections, like with people
Yeah.
like you,
Yeah.
like you said, like you just get, it's like fast too. When you're willing to
Hmm.
show people who you actually are, it's
Hmm.
these connections can be so meaningful so fast.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
when healing's happening, um, that's
Hmm.
key. Like I was motivated. I was so motivated by needing to heal.
Yeah.
So that's why I faced the most uncomfortable thing in the world to me sharing.
Yeah.
But I was just driven beyond to get out of
Hmm.
bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love people to reach out.
Okay. And where is the best place for them to reach out?
Oh, well, on probably on Instagram, right?
You tell
Alayna,
me.
oh yeah, Alayna, my name, Alayna Bellquist.
Mhm,
Um, and I'm on there every day. Like I usually post every day, so I
mhm.
connect with people. I have a website now. I have a
Yay.
website now. It's my
Wow.
name, alaynabellquist dot
Yeah.
com. And so through my
She means
website,
business. Hmm.
she means business, and there are little crows all over it, and it's so cute,
Yes.
so good. Um, so my website, Instagram,
Mhm,
yeah, and that's it. And then I do like monthly Zoom calls for people with Lyme or anyone who wants to heal, and they're free Zoom calls where we talk about a lot of it's Q&A or just things specific to Lyme. Where my and then my one of my doctors and I have hosted a few of them where she talks from a doctor perspective and I speak from
mhm,
a patient perspective about very specific things. So it's so valuable. I would have
mhm.
like I am truly the person today who I wanted 3 years ago when I was in
Yeah.
bed.
This is so awesome. This is so awesome. I love that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and again,
Okay.
like you don't have to. It's like there are people in my world who don't have Lyme
Yeah.
that I've connected with. Like it could be anxiety. I had brutal
Hmm.
anxiety for years.
Hmm.
So all the things.
Okay. I love that. I'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. There's
Thank
and I
you.
also want to link, remind me to, you mentioned, well, maybe you don't remember, a documentary on
The quiet epidemic.
the quiet epidemic.
Yeah.
And then was there a book? No, there was something else. It's fine.
The quiet epidemic is the documentary about Lyme. Is there a book? My book doesn't have a title
No,
yet.
no. Oh, I'm curious what the title will be. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Documentary.
Got
There
any
was something I,
ideas? Yeah.
yeah. Oh, for the book?
Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm all ears.
Hmm.
This
I'll ponder. I'll ponder.
Gemini
Um,
moon.
Jim.
Like
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. Okay, I can't even remember what the other
cool.
thing was. There's something I wanted
Yeah.
to link. Okay, I will send the people to your website. I will send the people to Instagram. Is there any final little tidbits? Is there like any words of wisdom, any thoughts, anything extra that we didn't cover?
My most sincere, heartfelt, thankful gratitude wave to you. I've just
Uh,
you are you I mean I know I'm more vocal about these things now, but it words kind of do diminish like how important people like you have been to my healing, and
mm,
you have been vital to me getting my life back. And
mm,
so you are just yeah, for anyone thinking about breath work, I mean you're top tier. You're
aw,
absolutely top tier what you do, and you've just been such a vital part to me, not only getting my life back, but to being so much better than I was before. And
wow,
I truly do not think I could have done it without people like you. And so, yeah, when I think about my healing, there are like 3 or 4 people maybe, and you're right up there. So I'm
wow.
just so grateful.
Oh, geez, man. Thank
Oh,
you.
geez.
What a honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Working on my just receiving because I want to like throw something nice back to you, but I'm just going to receive it.
No.
Taking it in. Thank
Take it
you.
in.
Hmm.
And then if anyone is struggling right now, I am a living, breathing example that
Hmm.
recovery, curing it is
Hmm.
absolutely possible, and you can be better for it. You can
Yeah.
absolutely be better for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Surround
Okay.
yourself with people like me who are.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to send the flocks to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
I'm here.
flocks, just like the crows.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I love ya
You too.
lots. And I actually get to see you in real human form very soon.
I know. So soon.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.
You too.
Bye.